Don't flirt with him.
I'm not going to... King Helen.
Welcome everyone to the One Family Movement World Peace Vlog. I am Jay Deva. The One Family Movement is a new people's plan to establish lasting world peace and sustainable humanitarian societies for all members of our worldwide human family. So, let's go. Welcome and thanks for joining us. This is the One Family Movement vlog number 2. Today I'll be reacting to a recent video from our good friend from across the pond, Russell Brand. His video is entitled, "If You Don't Trust the Media, Watch This." So in this reaction, we'll start with a brief overview. If you haven't seen the original video, I'll provide a link in the description. But we will also deepen and explore the information that's presented here using our One Family Movement World Peace research, including some things you might find surprising and eye-opening. Once again, Russell Brand has given us a brilliant video presenting information that's valuable and highly relevant for today. As always, just the right amount of humor and maybe a little something else too.
Don't flirt with him.
I'm not going to... King Helen.
Now, he starts out citing poll figures from the RT network, which has reported that the American media is basically the least trusted in the world when it comes to Americans. There's been a sharp decline in mass media consumption. The number of viewers are down, the readers are down, but this is not exclusively a United States problem, something that's much more widespread in the world, if not universal. So in summary, his presentation kind of shows us how these mainstream media outlets are really functioning as private for-profit corporations. They are not really here to inform you, to present neutral information, objective facts, but they're really here to serve their advertisers, their partners in big business, and also the state. So we see some clear economic motives behind their strategies. They are not really conveying truthful information as we would expect from the news or quote-unquote journalists as we understand the word. In other words, these shows ain't loyal. So he touches on a couple cases in point, including Rachel Maddow of MSNBC News Channel and also the famous Tucker Carlson of the Fox News Network. Within relatively recent times, both had defamation lawsuits dismissed by high courts after they gave separate contentious editorials. Basically, the arguments by their own lawyers as well as the decisions that were ultimately handed down shows that these individuals' shows are broadly understood to contain not facts, not the plain news, but exaggerations, opinions, even outright distortions of the news and events. So these stories reveal how these kinds of news shows are catering to the particular political views and agendas of the respective presenters and also especially their audiences. It constitutes this kind of fictional performance masquerading as news. In other words, it's a commercialized version of news as entertainment. And that entertainment is tailored to fit what they think the people want, what will resonate with them. So, not facts, which are presented with objectivity, balance, neutrality, what we normally expect from journalism. Instead, we see the mass media serving not only their own corporate interests, but other corporations and the state. They tend to censor any challenges to this power status quo as well. It's a commercial model of the mass media. They don't seek to inform, but they're really just preaching to the choir in a sense. Whether you are liberal on the quote-unquote left or quote-unquote conservative right, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. These types of shows are created according to a commercially motivated model. So they have a target audience, and they perpetually pit these opposing demographic political groups against one another. And this is the game they're playing, apparently centrally for profit. So what we get is this mainstream media with a commercial model that's become stale, static, a stagnant monstrosity of political polarization, if you will. And here, Russell is telling us it's been legally established as a performance, and that performance effectively blurs the line between fiction and the news. Now, you can see how there's a danger there for people consuming this type of media. So it's not only a performance, it's kind of a sleazy type of performance that they have likened to burlesque or vaudeville. So in summary, the takeaway that we're getting is we have to question our sources of information, realize the fictional nature of the mainstream media and the spin that they're putting on things. There are various ways that they can accomplish this, including the manner in which they present the information, the particular selection of news that is given, and of course also outright censorship of some information. So it's up to us to find trusted alternative sources of information, and also, perhaps more importantly, to tune into our own local communities, to be aware, to see with our own eyes and feel with our own hearts, and since becoming more active in our world and our communities, as well as increasing our own awareness. So this is what Russell Brand has given us. So you might almost think that this is something that's somewhat obvious, that people would already know, but I think you'd be surprised how many people need to hear this. Not only that, but to actually understand the mechanics of what's going on and the motivations behind it. According to our perspective, using the extensive One Family Movement world peace research we've been involved in, we can develop Mr. Brand's analysis even further, I think, and add to that discussion. So, for one thing, we have to understand that the mainstream mass media is not really something that has been put here to inform and enlighten the people. Unfortunately, that is not the overriding origin of these institutions. First and foremost, the mainstream mass media is a venue for elitist propaganda and social programming. There are very strong commercial and capitalist forces that are operating on and influencing the mass media, even controlling it. It is best understood as part of these elitist control mechanisms which target our minds, our behavior. It's social and behavioral programming. We also have to really think about the economic systems that the mainstream media serve. These systems are inherently and extremely unequal. The major financial institutions are administered by private corporate interests. These are instruments of economic slavery and mass oppression. These systems are a modern incarnation of old world tyranny, a feudal construct. So we really have to understand what's really going on here. The elitist economic infrastructure includes things like large international banks, the central national banks like the Federal Reserve here in the United States, and the local banks that we know that are subsidiaries of the central national banks and also the large international banks. So there's a hierarchy of control in this worldwide system. There are also large international corporations and the smaller subsidiary corporations that we know in our local countries and communities. These institutions, from the banks to the corporations, are all privately owned and controlled. The same is true for the mainstream media corporations. These elitist economic systems constitute monopolies over the lands, the resources, and the minds of humanity. The mass media is a central pillar of elitist control, along with militarism and our highly artificial money systems. So, who are the elitists? They're not merely the rich people or those people who have been successful in their careers, investing, business, and so forth. These elitists possess massive generational wealth and power, which is quantum levels above even the wealthy and successful people in our societies. The elitists go to great lengths to maintain secrecy and be anonymous within these systems, moving and living in completely separate circles than most people. Now, the identity and the motivations of these elitists has come up naturally in the course of our One Family Movement World Peace research. And I think it's very important to understand who these people are, why they behave the way they do, and why our societies and social systems are set up like they are. So, to some degree, this pathway of understanding opened up by following the money trail, asking the question, who is running these world systems? Who are the ones that are ultimately pulling the strings, causing our social systems, the social class systems to be the way they are? Who are the ones that are funding and propagating wars in different parts of the world at this point in human history, when we have so much communication technology, common knowledge of each other's cultures, language, diplomacy? In this day and age, there does not need to be these types of things going on in our world. We have more potential than we ever had for peace and harmony. But who is behind these things? Who are the ones funding these wars and organizing, supplying them? So we have to ask ourselves, who are the ones pulling the strings behind these wars, behind poor socioeconomic conditions for humanity? Following these lines of inquiry, we found that the elitist families have their origins in the northern regions of Europe. They basically came out of the context of the last glacial ice age period. This elitist culture was shaped by very harsh, competitive, violent conditions caused by climate changes of the period. Their culture has experienced not only rapid technological development to deal with the climate situation, but simultaneously a very steep moral and cultural decline. It's a situation where society was kind of turned upside down on itself. Those people who are normally the leaders, the best liked, the most charismatic or capable, were no longer in charge. Instead, the people who rose to power during that period were perhaps the most criminal, the most violent, ruthless, and physically robust individuals that were around. And perhaps this is what had to happen for their survival. Perhaps it is inevitable. Maybe many other peoples that were exposed to the same types of conditions would end up this way. So during the Ice Age, there was a period where relatively quickly, maybe within a couple of generations, the climate suddenly became extremely cold. Lands that were actually significantly warmer than what we see in Europe and Northern Europe today changed to extremely bleak tundra conditions. Huge ice glaciers, extensive expanses of tundra had formed, and in a sense, many of these people were trapped in this region of the world within the glacial ice age. So it became kind of a prison. Not only did they maybe not have a way to get out while surviving, but they were also unsure of where to go or if other places in the world had experienced similar conditions. So they did the best they could at the time. Now, within this context, there were certain individuals, certain groups of warriors, certain marauding, powerful Viking and similar groups that began to take control. They started with the populations of Northern Europe, oppressing them in a tyrannical fashion, practicing the raiding of each other's villages, the taking of each other's women and children, the killing of their men, the stealing of their resources, and because of the extreme situation, it became a necessity. It became an accepted way of life that we see reflected today in the constant militarism and the emphasis on militarism and the special exemption it's given when these types of behavior in almost any regular social context would be criminal and unacceptable. So the New Order saw the rise of these groups of marauding warriors who eventually became warlords within their areas. They established these warlordships, which eventually became consolidated, some taking over the others, some raiding the others, taking each other's resources, and eventually they became kings. And the bloodlines and close associates of these kings became the aristocracy of Europe. Ultimately, these statuses were achieved through invasion and many highly immoral actions. The main arm in the original identity of these kings and aristocrats in Europe was the military, the group of warriors who had established this order through violence. So the phenomenon that happened in Northern Europe during these periods began to spread outward. The first expansion involved the invasion and the feudal oppression of Europeans. Kingdoms were established that were ruled by these northern foreigners, barbarians of sorts. And then we see what happened as the power and the organization of these kingdoms expanded, and also the conditions of the glacial ice age began to warm up again. We begin to see this pattern of colonialism, imperialism, slavery, and the widespread economic oppression of humanity, as well as this militaristic oppression of the human family. So what's been going on in the world is an extension of the microcosm, the society that formed originally in Northern Europe. So it was the advancement of technological capabilities that was pushed by the necessity of the conditions of the Ice Age, along with the need for scarce resources and the development and organization of societies within Europe under the guidance of these cruel and immoral, barbaric cultural standards that were born of the Ice Age. The elitists have established a kind of global empire through these kinds of militarisms, and they're managing it through their international banking systems. So this is where the trail seems to lead, guys. When we think about who are the ones that are controlling these systems, not only the mainstream media, but also the systems of militarism, government, economics in our world, we see that it's all interconnected, and there's a definite power hierarchy that is global or international in nature. Now, it seems that this is where the trail ends, guys, and we can understand the cause and the root behind what has happened. Now, what has happened, we can see so much of the problems in our world today are linked to these extreme climate changes that happened many thousands of years ago. It would follow that our human family needs to somehow find a way to heal and recover. One good way to do this is by consulting some of the ancient human societies and culture that developed and were not so affected by the conditions of the Ice Age. Unfortunately, at the hands of colonialism and imperialism, so much has been destroyed, so many cultures have been lost, and so much knowledge is gone. But much has survived, and much is known in our academic institutions. So suffice to say that the elitists are in control of the mainstream mass media of the world in order to advance a program to misinform, to divide, to conquer, and to rule over the masses of humanity. The mainstream media is a very important tool for them. Why? Because they are an extreme minority of the global population. Only through dividing us and pitting us against each other, through all kinds of deceit, intricate schemes, and multi-generational programming, can they accomplish their goals of staying in power. The elitists are using many calculated very well-planned psychological offensives in order to confuse and divide the populations of the earth. These are not high-minded moral people. They regard the masses as cattle and property, as human resources, and they strategically misdirect all of the anger and the frustrations of the people who are living under these stressful, unequal, and very unnatural elitist systems of economic slavery against one another. To do this, they draw upon many differences between peoples and cultures to create hatred and division. These differences, real or manufactured by them, include race, religion, gender, political parties, or various contentious issues in society. This conveniently takes humanity's focus off of these elitist systems of inequality and oppression, which constitute humanity's real problems. So we got a taste of the corruption and misdirection that's happening with the mainstream mass media, not only in the US, but around the world. But we can take this analysis a little deeper. This is part of a global system that's being controlled by people who are carrying on this ancient, barbaric subculture. Make no mistake, these people do not value human life. They are propagating all of these highly unnecessary wars for profit, power, and control. They have normalized militarism, invasion, destruction, killing, rape, and theft. All of these things that go on under the official title of war. It's all been legalized and made socially acceptable. Things that are normally not socially acceptable and criminal in our civil societies. These are common things going on every day in wars. Unfortunately, in today's day and age, so many of these details are left out, de-emphasized, or spun in various ways in the mainstream media. This research indicates that right now the destiny of our worldwide human family is being affected by tragic climate changes in our planet's history. This has set off this domino effect and created a certain class of people who are propagating these things in our world today. The elitists were subjected to extremes that are highly unnatural to our human species, which is, in truth, a tropical or subtropical species at best. You can take a look at our biological characteristics. We are hairless primates. We are not really suited for the tundra conditions that developed in Northern Europe. Now, people can survive in these kind of environments through various, often very difficult cultural adaptations, but there is always a societal cost, and the worse the conditions, the higher that societal cost will be. The elitists are not well, they are sick. They're not mentally well, they're not culturally well, and their societies are not well. This shows in their history, their actions, and their relations with the rest of our worldwide human family. But don't get me wrong, these discussions are not in any way against Europeans or even Northern Europeans. It's not a racial thing. It's more of a forensic thing. We actually have to understand the facts, and we have to know the story that will allow us to understand and to pursue a path toward unity and forgiveness, a path that will allow us to move on and move forward as one worldwide human family. This is something that we have to do. We have to do these things to meet the huge challenges that are facing humanity today. This includes a very large and growing global population, the challenges of climate change that we are looking at, and also the general destruction of our environment. We have to move beyond these barbaric, outdated, selfish, inefficient systems of society. The futility and destruction isn't something that is sustainable. Instead, we need to build healthy, harmonious, cooperative societies that are abundant, prosperous, and good for everyone. And we have to find a way to do these things. Now, it's not necessarily that we have to hate or be against the elitists, but by understanding the vast majority of humanity needs to know we need to either come together to heal and transform the energy and situation, the the sickness that has been caused by events in our world's past, or we need to isolate these individuals if they're not willing to change and evolve into our modern age. We can do this by coming together with plans and organization and alliances that will allow us to carry on and take a new trajectory in our world. And this is the very purpose and the organization of the One Family Movement plan. Please check it out. You can learn more by watching our other videos, our overviews, and also checking out our website at onefamilymovement.com. It's often disheartening to hear the kind of excuses and rationalizations that are given by some people as to why history has been the way it is and why things are the way they are today. They like to liken us to the animal world, using this kind of pseudoscience like social Darwinism, survival of the fittest, these terms we hear. Now, while we are scientifically classified as animals, primates, or a type of ape to be exact, it's clear that we are very unique in this world. We have a great ability to manipulate and transform our world in various ways. We are a very unique species, and we like to enjoy the best technology, the best medicine, and all the best that great minds have to offer in our world. I think we need to keep that same energy with our societies and our social systems. We should be enjoying the very best that our world's humanitarian scholars can come up with, our philosophers, our activists. Our society and world can be so much better than what it is, but it's being dragged down by a sickness, a sort of a cancer that has threatened to destroy our entire species, as well as the environment of our planet. And we all have a role to play in these transformations and going forward with our global human society. If we just practice a little awareness, a little research, and keep our eyes open, we can see what's going on in the world. We can see the structure of the racism, the militarism, the hierarchies that have been established in our world, and who is controlling the major systems and pulling the strings from behind the curtain. People of European descent have to realize that we have been part of this cascading domino effect that has affected the world. And we have also been affected by not only the Ice Age, but the elitists that have taken control of our societies and the great majority of the world. Through colonialism and imperialism, these elitist societies have taken control of other societies, and even after there was a military withdrawal, they have still installed the systems and integrated them into their greater global infrastructure, which can be manipulated, controlled, and corrupted by the same methods, not only of organized violence, of secretive violence, and of course, economic manipulations. This is not the relationship that our worldwide family should have. This is not the way it should be. So despite whether we are of European descent or not, we need to instead choose to unite with the worldwide human family. We need to choose a different path. It's something that we've been born into. We've already been born into this crazy roller coaster and a crazy past, which has brought us to where we are. So even though it's not something we may have actually actively done in our lifetimes or propagated these situations, we have been born into it. So it is going to take a concerted effort, some sort of effort to get off this train. We need to plot a new course, one that's unified with the global human family. And there's so much potential to do better, because I think for most of us, this is not the way we really want to live. By using these divide and conquer techniques, these institutions like the mass media, which have been exposed to some degree by people like Russell Brand, we're often made to believe that we are isolated or in some way against the rest of the world. But really, there is nothing further from the truth. Our best path is definitely going to be in uniting with the rest of the world. This is something that we're going to have to do, not only for the survival of our species, but also for the salvation of our cultures and our quality of life. not only for us, but for future generations to come. So to wrap it up, thank you so much, Russell Brand, for this brilliant video. Good work as always. Great work. And to what you've done, I add that this is only the tip of the iceberg. There are things much larger and much more sinister going on than this type of greed and economic corruption, than lies and deceit. This is tied to a much greater construct which is oppressing our human family. And together, I hope we can do something about it. So I encourage you, please check out the One Family movement. It's something that's been developed over a couple of decades, and it is a possible path forward for our worldwide human family. Much love, guys, and thank you. Take care. If you'd like to support the One Family movement, please watch our videos, like, subscribe to our channel, get notifications. Check out the One Family Movement book on Amazon and other online booksellers, or stop by our website at onefamilymovement.com. There you can find all of our videos, our t-shirts, and other merchandise to help spread the word through art. There you can also access our GoFundMe to invest in world peace and a brighter future for all people.